At the beginning of the movie, we see an evil wizard attacking the kingdom, and this magician used black magic to control giant elephants. And the giant elephants were violent because the magician used black magic to control them. The magician's army was very strong and would destroy anyone who encountered it, to the extent that no human army could stand before him. After that, we see the castle of King Arthur, who is the last hope for humanity in confronting the evil wizard. The wizard of the kingdom saw the danger coming from afar, and because of that he created a magic sword, with which he could destroy the evil force. And he used the wand of the wizard king to forge this sword. When the battle intensified and people lost hope, King Arthur took the sword and flew on the evil wizard's tower alone. Because of this, the human soldiers' resolve increased and hope was restored to them again, and they began to fight the evil wizard's army. When the king reached the wizard's lair, he grabbed his sword in both hands. A miraculous power surged out from the sword, breaking through the fire barrier that the mage had created. The king struck the sorcerer by striking his judge with a sword. With the death of the magician, the elephants got out of control and went into a frenzy. The elephants knocked the magician's army off their backs as they fell into the valley. Thus, King Arthur was able to defeat the wizard and his army, but there was a problem, which was the jealousy of his brother Vortigern, who was always jealous of Arthur, and he wanted to be king. So he went and made a deal with the water demons to give him super evil power. And these are water devils who fulfill your dreams, but in return they are very expensive. And in return they demanded of Vortigern is his wife's soul. Indeed, he killed his wife and gave her body to them. Thus, he gained the power of evil, and he transformed into a powerful mythical being holding a scythe in his hand. In the beginning, Vortigern used the spear and killed the queen, and then he went to confront his brother, King Arthur. The king put his son on the ground and then faced his brother Vortigern. The battle was fierce between them, but Vortigern was stronger even after Arthur wielded the holy sword. Vortigern defeats King Arthur in a short time. The king ordered his son Arthur to flee quickly, and then he threw the sword up and killed himself. He did this in order to prevent Vortigern from obtaining the power of the sword. Indeed, his plan succeeded. As soon as the sword entered his body, he turned into stone and fell into the sea. After Arthur's death, Vortigern seizes the throne and raises a new army with black armor to support him in his unjust rule. However, things were not going as he wanted. At night, after more than 10 years have passed, the sea suddenly dried up without any reason. Then the stone statue of Arthur appeared. The appearance of the statue caused an uproar among the people, although no one was able to lift the sword from the stone. We discover that when the magician of the kingdom made the sword, he gave it unique characteristics, including that no one could carry this sword except King Arthur or any of his descendants. Vortigern was worried when he saw the statue and the sword. Then he went to the water demons immediately and asked them what had happened. They answered him that this is an old prophecy, and it means that someone will come and restore the rule of King Arthur again, and that this person will isolate Vortigern from the kingdom. In a short time, this prophecy spread throughout the kingdom. Vortigern ordered his soldiers to bring to him all the young men in the kingdom to take the sword off the statue, and the one who can lift the sword from the statue will be executed by Vortigern before he takes over the kingdom. After thousands of attempts, no one could lift this sword from the statue, until a special person came to them and went to raise the sword. As he held the sword in his hand, the force of the sword interacted with it to the point that everything around the place shook and all the people present were terrified. Indeed, this man was able to lift the sword from the statue because, in fact, this person is the son of King Arthur. But Arthur couldn't control the sword, so he passed out. We discover then that Arthur was raised in a brothel after he was able to escape after the murder of his father, the king. One of the women who works there raised him. He wasn't living the life of royalty, but royal blood still ran through his veins. And as a result of his presence in random areas like the one in which he was raised by a harsh upbringing, and he developed himself and his strength, as if he was destined to go to the sword and pull him out of his father's petrified body. After he got older, he began to learn martial arts under the supervision of a Chinese coach. All these factors made him ready for the battle that awaits him. We return to the present, where we see that Arthur is locked in his cell. His uncle, Vortigern, believed that Arthur was a threat to his existence in the kingdom, and he wanted to get rid of him as soon as possible before he restores his father's rule again. But Vortigern decided to tell Arthur the reason for his intention to kill him, and he told him about his true origins. Then he brought the woman who raised him and killed her in front of him in order to show him that he is in control. Also, to show the people that the king they are waiting for in order to fulfill the prophecy could not save the woman who raised him, and therefore he is unable to save the people. In order to destroy the hope of the people, Vortigern decided to execute Arthur in front of their eyes. But it wasn't that easy. After that, we see a witch hiding far away, and she was using her abilities to control a huge eagle. The eagle attacked the person responsible for executing Arthur and drove him away. Meanwhile, all the animals present at the execution site have become wild and attack anyone in front of them. Meanwhile, Arthur's men seized the opportunity to attack Vortigern's men. They managed to free Arthur and also took the magic sword with them. Then they fled the scene and jumped into the sea. Arthur went with his father's men to the mountain, where he found a cave, and there were many men. All these men were loyal to King Arthur, and they were waiting for his son, Arthur, to restore his father's rule again and free them from the unjust rule of Vortigern. But Arthur was not interested in restoring his father's rule, so someone gave him the sword. When he picked up the sword, memories from the past began to appear in him. He witnessed the fight between his father and his uncle Vortigern earlier when he was a child. After that, he fell to the ground because he could not bear the force of the sword. After that, his father's men decided to take him to the Dark Island so that he could bring out the power that was inside this island, and thus he could control the sword. This Dark Island is an unknown island full of strange and wild creatures. He has become in front of a fait accompli, either to control the power of the sword and eliminate the savage creatures and survive, or the savage creatures will eliminate him. When he entered the island, he discovered that there are mountains of human skulls, and this means that millions of people have died in this place. The wild creatures began to attack him, but as a result of his courage and persistence, he was able to kill all the wild creatures and managed to survive. When he caught the sword, he saw his childhood memories again, but this time he saw the memories in full, and then fainted because he did not fully control the sword. We then move to Vortigern and discover that he was the one who previously agreed with the evil wizard who used elephants to attack the kingdom. And this was his plan to take power from his brother, but his plan failed when the magician of the kingdom made the magic sword. He also could not take advantage of the power of the sword after his brother's death, because he is not a descendant of his brother. Vortigern was willing to kill anyone just to find Arthur and the magic sword. The devastation that occurred in the kingdom made Arthur very angry, so he decided to regain power from his uncle Vortigern. Then their chance came when they learned that Vortigern would be moving out of the castle, so they hired a professional archer. His English bow made him hit his target from 100 meters away. They put him in the best place from which he can see all his goals. We then discover that Vortigern has done all this to deceive them into revealing Arthur's whereabouts. So he made someone dress like him. When the archer fired the arrow, he did not hit the substitute because he sneezed and bowed his head, and the arrow hit Vortigern's minister. At this moment, Vortigern's soldiers shot a flaming arrow into the air as a signal. Vortigern's army sets out to find Arthur among those present. The soldiers were too many, so Arthur and his companions had to flee. They went to the martial arts arena, although the kung fu masters tried to save him, but Vortigern's army was too numerous. Arthur could not stand by while his men sacrificed themselves for him, so he grabbed the sword and entered the fight. At this moment, the dirt was flying around him, and we discover that Arthur was able to control the power of the sword. With one blow, he kills all of Vortigern's soldiers and saves his own. All those present were happy with the return of their king, who will free them from the oppression of King Vortigern. People started chanting his name, so Arthur decided to take the throne so that the sacrifices of his soldiers would not be in vain. At the same time, Vortigern sacrificed his daughter to the water demons to give him the power he wanted. So he sacrificed his wife and daughter for the sake of greed. The water demons took his daughter's corpse to the bottom of the water and gave him the dark power he wanted. Darkness took hold of him, and there was not an atom of humanity left in him. After that, Arthur and his soldiers attack the kingdom. The witch summoned a giant serpent to attack Vortigern's castle. The snake killed all those present and destroyed the palace in seconds, but when it reached Arthur, he stood in front of him and did nothing to him, then left him and went. Arthur grabbed the magic sword and started killing Vortigern's soldiers. The power of the sword and its ability made time slower for Arthur, and he was killing the soldiers quickly and with terrible force, to the point that none of the soldiers could strike him a single blow. After that, he hit the soldiers with a strong blow that killed them all. The remaining soldiers were convinced that they would not be able to withstand Arthur and his strength, so they laid down their weapons and recognized that Arthur was the king. After that, Arthur entered the Tower of Darkness without any resistance, and with the sword in his hands. A very strange thing happened. The magical power of the sword, which represents the light, mixed with the magic power of the Tower of Darkness, and the two forces formed a battlefield in which the decisive fight between Arthur and Vortigern would take place. Vortigern appeared in his demon form in front of Arthur. He threw a ball of fire at Arthur and knocked him down, after which he attacked him with several blows. Arthur was such a toy in Vortigern's hands that he hit him hard and knocked him to the ground, and he fell into a coma. Arthur had a vision about his childhood while he was on the ground and saw the same scene that haunted him in all his dreams, but this time the scene was so real that Arthur could feel the two of them fighting now. In a dream, his father came to him and spoke to him, motivating him to kill Vortigern, take revenge on him, and restore power to him again. Arthur pulled the sword from his father's back and brought him back to life. Then we move to reality and see that Arthur was able to gather his strength and rise. When Vortigern threw a fireball at him again, this time Arthur was able to block it with ease. After that, he attacked him, and also he was able to overcome his fear, and thus he became more in control of the sword. He was able to control the sword and use full sword power. He turned all the hate and fear inside him into anger that had no limits, and he was attacking Vortigern without mercy. Afterwards, he managed to plunge the sword into Vortigern's heart. Thus, he was able to avenge his father, his mother, and his kingdom. When Vortigern died, he was restored to his normal form again. and the Tower of Darkness collapsed under the power of the magic sword, turning into dust in seconds. At the end of the movie, we see King Arthur as he is crowned on the throne of his kingdom to the cheers of the people. After that, we discover that he ordered the manufacture of a round table around which his special knights will sit, whose name will become the Knights of the Round Table. This will not be just a name, but will become a symbol of loyalty and honor. I hope you enjoyed the video. Subscribe for more, hit the like button to support us, and leave a comment if you'd like us to review your favorite movie. Until the next time, take care.